In 2023, a startup unveiled a $700 pin that promised to replace your phone. It projected a glowing screen onto your palm. Break time equals 0, 6 is /12 months later it was dead. This is the anatomy of a high-profile hardware failure. Here's why this failure matters. Humane raised about $230 million from Sam Altman, Mark Benioff, and a crowd of OpenAI adjacent believers. On paper, the company was valued near $1 billion. The promise was audacious, the first device built for life after the smartphone. An ambient assistant you talk to that answers out loud and paints a screen onto your hand. So here's the one decision that changed everything, the bet that decided this whole story. Because if the most hyped, best-funded AI wearable can collapse this fast, it exposes exactly what these devices still cannot do. So what was this thing actually? Picture a small square you clip to your shirt with a magnet. That's the Humane AI Pin. It cost $699 up front. But the price didn't stop there. Using it required a subscription of $24 a month forever, for the phone number and the data it ran on. And here's the part that made people lean in: it had no screen at all. Instead, a tiny laser inside projected a green interface onto your open palm. Humane called it the ink display. You'd raise your hand and menus would appear on your skin. You controlled it two ways. You talked to it, and you tapped a small touchpad on its face. Inside, it leaned on GPT-4, OpenAI's language model, to do the thinking. You could ask it questions. You could hold up an object and ask what it was. It could translate a conversation, send a message, or summarize your emails, all without a screen in your pocket. That was the whole idea in one sentence. Kill your phones. Live screen free. No feed to scroll, no glass to stare at, no notifications pulling your eyes down every 90 seconds. The pitch wasn't a better phone. The pitch was no phone. And for a moment, that sounded like the future everyone had been waiting for. A world where the computer disappears and you just look up. But a promise is easy. Delivering it is where the trouble started. Then the reviews landed. And they were brutal. Marques Brownlee, the most-watched tech reviewer on the planet, titled his video, "The Worst Product I've Ever Reviewed." For now, on camera he called it roughly the worst product he'd ever reviewed, maybe ever. That's not a bad grade. That's a eulogy. So what went wrong? Almost everything you touched. Ask it a simple question and you'd wait. And wait. Seconds would crawl by while it thought. Worse, the answer that finally came back was sometimes just wrong, invented on the spot with total confidence. The palm projection, the marquee feature, was nearly impossible to read in daylight. Step outside into the sun, and the glowing menu on your hand simply vanished. Voice recognition stumbled too. It would mishear you or miss you entirely. And then there was the heat. The pin ran hot against your chest. Hot enough that it would deliberately slow itself down to cool off, which made the lag even worse. The little battery boosters that snapped on the back to extend its life. Humane recalled them. The batteries posed a fire risk. Read that again. The accessory that kept the device alive could catch fire. Break time equals 0, 6 is / here's the sentence that sealed it. Basic things your phone does in a blink. Checking the time, sending a text, looking something up, either failed outright or took the pin many long seconds to finish. A tool that's slower than the tool it replaces isn't a tool. It's a demo. And a demo strapped to your chest for $699 is a very expensive one. The verdict wasn't mixed. It was a wall. Now the deeper question. Not what broke, but why it was doomed before the first unit shipped. Here's the fundamental flaw. The pin solved a problem almost nobody actually had. And to do it, it threw away a device that already did far more, far better. Think about the trade it asked you to make. Your phone gives you a sharp, bright screen you can read anywhere, that responds the instant you touch it. The pin offered a dim green smear on your palm that you couldn't read in sunlight, controlled by a voice assistant that often didn't understand you. That's not a leap past the screen. That's a step backward from it. And the technical problems weren't bugs waiting for a software update. They were walls. When you cram the job of a phone into something the size of a matchbook, physics pushes back. There isn't room for a big battery, so it dies fast. Pack that tight, the chip has nowhere to send its heat, so it cooks. And routing every question up to a server in the cloud and back takes time, so it lags. Battery heat and delay weren't accidents. They were the price of the shape. But here's the part that really sinks it. The pin was pitched as the cure for a real feeling. Phones are distracting, they steal our attention. Fair enough. Except the pin's fix was to take away what the phone does well, the fast, reliable answers, while the underlying need for those answers never went anywhere. It removed the capability without removing the reason you reached for the phone in the first place. So you were left worse off. Same need, weaker tool, higher price. That's not a solution. That's a subtraction dressed up as a revolution. So how did it end? Fast. Within roughly a year of all that launch hype, Humane was quietly hunting for a buyer. According to reporting from Bloomberg, The company was seeking somewhere between $750 million and $1 billion for itself. At that price, nobody bids. Think about the gap for a second. A company that had raised around $230 million and once carried a near billion-dollar valuation was now shopping for an exit, and the offers weren't coming. In early 2025, the deal that finally closed told the whole story. HP, the printer and laptop company, bought Humane's assets and much of its team for about $116 million. Far, far below what investors had poured in. The founder's vision didn't sell for a premium. It sold for parts. And then came the coldest part of all. The pins that people had actually bought, the $699 devices clipped to real shirts, stopped working. Humane shut down the cloud services the pin depended on to think. No cloud, no assistant. No assistant, no product. Owners were left holding a small, dead square of aluminum that would never answer another question. You paid $699 for hardware, and one corporate decision turned it into a paperweight overnight. Break time equals 0. 6 is slash from breathless launch stage to fully discontinued. The entire arc took about 12 months. Not 12 months of decline. 12 months total. Launch to lights out. It is one of the fastest, most public falls in modern consumer tech. And it happened in plain sight, with some of the biggest names in the industry watching. So what's the real lesson buried in this wreckage? Here it is, and it's the one decision that changed everything, the bet Humane made at the very start. They bet that hype and money could stand in for solving a real problem better than the thing people already owned. They couldn't. That was the choice that doomed it, made long before a single pin overheated. Look closely and a pattern appears. AI works best as a feature bolted onto a tool you already love. Your phone, your search bar, your email. It works worst when it's the excuse to invent a whole new gadget that does less. Humane had the AI part roughly right. It got the shape catastrophically wrong. Because here's the trap. The pin asked people to give up a proven, capable tool for an unproven, weaker one, and to pay a premium for the downgrade. No amount of investor money changes that math. People don't adopt the future because it's new. They adopt it when it's genuinely better at something they already do every day. So what would a real phone killer have to do? It couldn't just match the phone. It would have to beat it on the things phones are already great at: speed, clarity, reliability, and then add something the phone can't touch. The pin did the opposite. It lost on the basics and asked you to celebrate the loss. That's the anatomy of a $700 12-month failure. But it leaves the bigger question wide open. Can any AI wearable actually succeed, or is the pocket screen simply too good to beat? Tell me in the comments which one you think finally cracks it. And to see the device Humane was trying to kill, and why it's so hard to replace, watch the smartphone teardown next.